Is the UK producing enough scientists and engineers? Are the government and private sector spending enough on research and development? And how does innovation translate into internationally competitive industries and well-paid jobs? The UK Innovation Report from Cambridge Industrial Innovation Policy tracks these important questions and more. The report, released annually, puts the UK's industrial and innovation performance in a global context and brings together in a single place innovation and value-added indicators in a concise and accessible format. To recover from the pandemic and thrive, the UK will need to modernise today's industries and reduce carbon emissions while nurturing the industries of tomorrow. This will require a clear understanding of the interplay between innovation and industrial performance, making the UK Innovation Report an essential resource.
Well, good evening, everybody. Rather nice to be back, isn't it? Delighted to welcome Indro Mukerjee this evening. Very distinguished and appropriate speaker for the CIIP series. He's been deeply involved in successful commercial and industrial innovation for many years. Extremely well placed to understand what government agencies can most usefully do to accelerate innovation and consequently economic growth. So we're very pleased to welcome you, Indro. A few words of brief introduction to our host. Thanks to, my name is Mike Gregory. I chair the Babbage Policy Forum. I used to work here many moons ago. Thanks to Tim for hosting us. Tim Minshall, where are you, Tim? Professor Minshall, I should say. The IFM is the ideal place for this kind of conversation, with its broad integrating approach to manufacturing, understanding markets, design, production, distribution, service, and increasingly sustainability. It's the natural place for discussions of industrial policy. We have within the walls, as many of you will know, the Centre for Science Policy Innovation with Ona Sullivan. We have Carlos Lopez Gomez Policy Links Unit and the Babbage Forum, all of which owe much to David Sainsbury and his Gatsby Foundation, of course. The Babbage Forum itself is a small community, international community of senior engineers, operations folks, and even economists, trying to develop better integrated foundations for the development of relevant and robust industrial policies. So it's much pleasure that I introduce one of the people most influential in the development of such policies for the UK. When Indro's finished, I will abuse my role as chairman and ask a few questions, and then you can all have a go. Indro, please.
Very much. Okay, that should be on now. Thank you very much for the introduction, Mike, and for the welcome and indeed for the invitation. So my interest in manufacturing is very, very personal. I have a manufacturing background, which varies from being responsible for businesses manufacturing millions of things, semiconductors, to businesses manufacturing hundreds of thousands of things, specialist electronics, high temperature electronics, and as far down to businesses that have been manufacturing tens or dozens of things in small volume prototypes. And I can respect the challenge and the journey that all of you and all of the people who do all of those things. I met Mike for the first time in person recently and told him when I first met him on Zoom that he was a living legend. He was a bit surprised about that. And the reason that he's a living legend is because the kind of manufacturing evolution that I've had in my career makes me fully respect and admire a person as distinguished as Mike within the UK and indeed even global manufacturing scene. So people of my generation and beyond will know you, Mike, to be a very, very accomplished and special figure in this area, and as part of the way that the UK's forefront of many of these manufacturing philosophies, principles and practices around the world. So today I'm going to share with you a few thoughts, first of all, on where we are as Innovate UK, and to share that perspective with you, and then to give you a bit of a perspective about where we are and where we are going to be within the manufacturing area, and to share with you some plans that we have regarding that particular area. Oh, and by the way, the video that you just showed regarding your innovation report, the very questions at the very beginning of that video, I thought this was going to be somebody's giving me an appraisal or something, because those are the precise questions that I have to answer on behalf of the work that we're doing as Innovate UK across the whole of the UK. So these are the very, very, very fundamental questions that we have to answer as a community and as a nation. The words there, manufacturing the future economy, are deliberately chosen because obviously we are in a manufacturing area, and that's going to be the focus of what I will talk about. But we call the future economy the feeling that we have in terms of what we want to see being built in the UK over the next 15 years. So when you look at innovation, you shouldn't just look at innovation in short cycles, but over a long period of time. Innovate UK has been going for 15 years, and so it's only right that we should look at a 15-year horizon. And I will share with you some ways that we are doing that. So innovation as the lifeblood of business, this is actually a very good time to be involved in innovation in the UK for two reasons. One is that it's extremely necessary, and to see the translation of science research into commercialization and beyond that to business, there has never been a more important time in history in terms of that need, because we need that for our economy, we need it to help our society, and with everything that's been going on over the last couple of years, this is a really, really great time to be involved in focusing on that area. The second is that there is quite an interesting zeitgeist at the moment for innovation. I can quite clearly see many bodies across government becoming very focused on this area, and that's very welcome, and that's very important in terms of the focus that's taking place in terms of this area. And I see this as a very important time to be involved in this activity. Innovate UK, as you know, is the UK's innovation agency. So our job is to support business and support the innovation journey in business. That innovation journey is, when it's great, it can be the most fantastic thing that exists, but it can also be a very, very, very challenging and difficult thing. So real world innovation is not trivial. It doesn't come with any guarantees. It doesn't come with zero risk. And therefore you have to be able to be, as an agency and as a supporter, aware of this. And so we talk sometimes about the so-called valley of death, which is the valley between starting up something and getting to some kind of basic run rate state, and it looks like it's going to be okay, and then you fall down. And this is an area where Innovate UK is very, very active in supporting businesses to help them bridge that so that they can get through and more businesses become successful, more innovative businesses become successful, so that our economy and society can be improved and developed. And so this is a very important area for us to do. Now, the interesting thing is that we want to be agile, we want to be inclusive, and we want to be easy to navigate. I don't yet think we are as agile and as inclusive and as easy to navigate as I'd like us to be, and that feeling is felt by pretty much all of our people and all of our principal stakeholders. And so our job is to exactly go on that journey. And it's always good to have a journey to go on, because anybody who gets to a point where there isn't anything more to be done, then why are you there? So we have definitely got a journey to go on, but we have a great starting point in the sense that we have fantastic people, we have some really great connections, and we have a care and a passion for making the UK successful. So this is a very strong starting point. I myself have been with Innovate UK for a year now. This is my first public sector job, and it's an interesting experience to go from being a long-term private sector business leader to being a public sector CEO of an organisation like ours. That's a very, very interesting jump, and I've learned a lot in my in my year doing this job. You can't run Innovate UK as a business. It's not a business, but at the same time there are many business principles that I think are very good to put in. So making that balance within what you do is a very, very important thing. I happen to believe it's really important to not show up to a new activity, whether it's a business or a public sector organisation like ours, with a pre-cast playbook in your mind. As a leader, you have to immerse yourself in the situation, understand the people, understand what's going on, understand the history, understand the hopes and fears of all of the employees, and then you can start building from that. And this is what I've spent a very busy, very active year doing, whilst of course developing some new ideas on the spot, and I'm going to share a lot of those with you today. So we've coined 3 in-words to summarise what we do as Innovate UK, since my first name is Indro, then I'm kind of the 4th in-word. And these words are inspire, involve and invest. And we chose these words quite deliberately to showcase what we would do, and we try to use them in as many of our messages that we can. Innovation is a journey that's a non-trivial journey, and it's great to look back on a journey that's been successful, but it can sometimes be very painful to be on that journey, and sometimes it takes a lot of courage to even start it in the first place. So inspiring brilliant people to be able to do things is a really important thing. I also want to put in the word inspiring that we want to inspire people who might not have previously also had the chance to, or the feeling that they should have tried. And so this is another important part, and I'm going to come back to that point in a while. Involve is an important word. We have a massively rich ecosystem in the UK, and harnessing that ecosystem is very important. So harnessing it to make partnerships, collaborations, communities is a really important role. And as Innovate UK, we see this as a very important part of what we want to do. And the invest part is clearly what everyone thinks of. Bear in mind that around half of our resources are involved in, or just a little bit over half, in terms of the actual giving of grants, awarding of grants and awarding of loans. The rest of the people, it's a very substantial amount, are involved in advisory services, so where we would help businesses to raise money, to scale up, to develop their skills and talent, to export. And so we do a lot of work outside the grant or loan giving side of things. And so when we invest, we consider an impact framework as being extremely important. We have a logic model to assess how and what we want to focus on, and how we should be measuring what we do, such that we can show value for money, for the public money that goes into this, because we have to remember that we spend public money. So as people who spend public money, we have the responsibility to public, which is including all of you, to be open, transparent, but also efficient in the way that we spend the money and effective in the way that we spend the money. So having models to assess impact is a very important part, and this has been a very important part of our growth and development, particularly over the last year or so. In November last year, we launched this plan for action, which is a thing that looks like the pamphlet on the left-hand side. You can find this online by Googling Innovate UK Plan for Action, and in it you will find a series of 5 strategic themes and 6 strong foundations that we are using to explain everything that we do. And this is how we want to help to work to help create the future economy, a successful, vibrant, innovation-based future economy for the UK, and also to contribute out to our society as well. So we use this framework, and inside this plan there are 12 we will statements where we explain how we will be working to support UK business, and these are affirmations and commitments that we give to UK business in this. And so if anyone has got a moment, just look up Innovate UK Plan for Action, and you'll see this thing, and it's there quite clearly written and presented with a strong affirmation to how we will support UK business as a public service and as business goes through its innovation journey. If I take for a second the 5 strategic themes. These are themes that encompass all aspects of successful business, and they encompass all aspects of successful business as businesses go through their innovation journey. So we definitely want to support the growth of high growth and highly relevant sectors, which may or may not be the ones that are defined completely today. And we then need to be careful and aware that in our horizon scanning, we are making sure that we don't miss out areas that are growing fast, but maybe aren't in the forefront of already being established and so forth. In terms of scale, that's a vital area for the UK, because businesses in the UK, or at least this is how the apocryphal story is told, sometimes get to a certain level and find it hard to go up that scale-up journey. Of course, that's not always true, and there are brilliant examples of businesses that do that. But what I think we want to say is that we'd like to have greater efficiency in terms of the ability for businesses to go up that area. And so it's our job to see how we can best support them for that area. Innovate UK's charter and focus is more at the startup establishment end, and what we now need to do is to be able to work with partners, British Business Bank and others, to be able to help with this scale up much more, and this is an area of big focus for us. We are, I think, 1.5% of world GDP, so there is a very substantial amount of GDP outside the UK, and so global opportunities is really very important about everything that we do. Helping businesses to find those opportunities, work to those opportunities and be successful is a really, really important thing. Helping businesses to be export and international partnership ready is an important thing. And we have services and people and specialists who can help with that journey. As I mentioned already, we have a very rich innovation ecosystem in the UK. From a business perspective, it's not always simple to navigate. I'll be honest with you about that. People in the system understand the acronyms and the connections, and they get very interested in particular, oh, he said this or she said that. But the reality is that most businesses don't know about this. It's confusing to them. And so helping to navigate the innovation ecosystem and making it simple and accessible is one of our important roles. And last but not least on that list, there is, I think, an opportunity which is developing. It's had some great work done to it, but I think it's got still massive potential still, which is the whole thing of government. Connections with government as a customer, and making links for SMEs in particular to sell and connect with the public sector. We have a program, very successful program called SBRI, which some of you may have heard of. It's maybe not the it's a kind of title that sort of says what it does if you understand what that is, but it perhaps can do with some boosting, and we really have strong ambitions in that area, and so you might see some changes over the coming months in that area. But we think the government area is a very important one for the UK economy, and we think that's a particular untapped opportunity for SMEs in particular. As far as the foundations are concerned, we have a massively rich and vibrant, obviously, science and research foundation in the UK. It's world class by any measurements, and getting the best out of it is one of our really strong elements. And so wanting to have very strong connections with research councils, having very strong partnerships with research councils to be able to help businesses go on innovation and commercialization journeys is a really important part of what we do. Design is sometimes forgotten, actually, and people sometimes think that design is a little bit fluffy or something. We think it's fundamental, and we think design is a very, very fundamental part of successful, innovative businesses. And I can explain this more, or I'm sure you all, you don't need me to explain it, you all know this already, that design is much more than whether you're wearing a white shirt or a blue shirt. There are fundamental things to products and services, attitudes, and also usability, longevity, net zero, all are fundamental in this area. We're living in a world where many things need a societal impact assessment and a strong sense of responsibility as we do our work. And so we are very much keen on that area. I link together often innovation, talent and skills and equality, diversity and inclusion because, well, of course, equality, diversity and inclusion is something that we should be focused on because we're human beings. I mean, why wouldn't you be? Because it's an obvious human thing that you should be doing, treating people with equality, respect, understanding diversity, and being respectful for it. In addition, we will absolutely have challenges if we don't do a better job with our skills and talent pipeline. So our skills and talent pipeline doesn't show a deficit in some areas because no one's been trying. It's because it's hard to get the skills and talents, but it's even harder if you exclude massive talent that we have and massive potential just because it doesn't have the inclusivity or the opportunity or is made to feel welcome. So imagine if we make more people feel welcome, increase the inclusivity, look to helping innovators across a very diverse community. Imagine what we could do to our skills and talent pipeline for the UK. And this is an area that I think is a potential secret weapon for our nation in terms of the competitiveness versus other countries. And so as we look to wanting to have strong ambitions in terms of our innovation objectives, I think looking to diversity and inclusion is a really important ingredient to getting the skills and talent pipeline that we need. And last but not least on this chart, place and levelling up. You all know that there was recently a white paper on levelling up, and you all know that we need to have more equity, more equality across the UK, and this is a very important element for what we do. I'm just going to get some water if I may. I've been talking all day, and this is the end of a long day that's been as varied as looking at inkjet printing all the way to agriculture. So it's been a very varied day. So excuse me 1 second whilst I take a sip. In terms of some of the areas, I talked about foresighting and horizon scanning. This is a really, excuse me, this is a really important part of what we do. And it's really important to be agile and to spot disruptive changes, anticipate them as best as you can, and respond to them. Those are the most important things. Beyond that, we have been looking at our people, resources, assets across Innovate UK, which varies from substantial teams in our sector teams. We also have challenges. These are the industrial strategy challenges, as were previously named. We have Catapult Network, we have a knowledge transfer network, and we have an Edge business advisory service network. So we have a very substantial array of different resources across many different areas. So what we've been doing since the start of this year is looking across all those areas to see what the way is to get strategic coherence across all those areas under three, let's say, very broad meta domains, realizing, of course, that there are many subdomains under them. And these meta domains are net zero, health and well-being, and what we call technologies. So within all these, clearly there are subdomains which you would understand because we then would have names, you know, semiconductors or energy management, automotive, etc. But the intention is to be able to make strategic coherence across all these different parts. And Innovate UK covers a lot of different parts which over the years have grown bit by bit. And so now is a good time for us to look at what the synergies and overlaps and possibilities are when we look more horizontally across all the things that have been developed over the last 15 years. And there's a very strong array of different areas. And so this is something we're very excited about, and you'll see in the latter part of this year, you'll see some outcome from this which will show how we are looking to build the future economy and to help support it from an innovation point of view based on this work that we're doing across all of our different areas. We also have missions and challenges, which I mentioned as part of them, and I just picked out three here that I think you will all recognise. In fact, actually, there are many others that we could have had, that we could have put on there as well. But I just picked out three: Faraday, transforming construction, and industrial decarbonisation. As I said, there are others that we could pick, and each of these has a lot of relevance to a lot of the work that's been done here, and I think has a lot of substantial relevance to our economy and our society, and very relevant to the place and levelling up agenda, because a lot of the potential to repurpose and to help transformation of industries also will have a great benefit to society across the UK and in across the whole of the UK, the length and the breadth of the UK. Let me see now, where am I? Just a second. Yeah. So I want to mention that last year we put out the Transport Vision 2050, and the intention of this document was to give a kind of thought piece to provoke and to help provoke thought into where are we all going as various parts of this transport area. Because one of the paradoxes in transport is that sometimes there is the implication that you need to get to a net zero position by doing less, which is, I can understand why, but in transport we also have needs of society, which means that you're likely to have greater transport needs as your society wants to do more and access more and so forth. And so how do you handle that and at the same time handle a net zero paradigm? Well, there are many ways that you can do that and many exciting ways, and we showcased a lot of these ideas as thought pieces in this particular document, Transport Vision 2050. And the reason I mention that is because we are in the process of working on a Manufacturing Vision 2050, which we want to do the same thing. So the Manufacturing Vision 2050 has the intention to reimagine manufacturing and to imagine a manufacturing future up until 2050. Of course, we don't expect that it's going to be, every single word is going to be right, but we want to provoke thought. We want to provoke people to look at how we can make some fantastic things in the UK by reimagining manufacturing. So why do we want to reimagine manufacturing? Well, because this is an area which has got a very, very proud longer term history, but perhaps more recently it might not have the same understanding or relevance, or perceived relevance, I would say, in some areas. And so I think there's a huge opportunity to reimagine manufacturing under some new lenses, which I'm going to explain in a moment. And I think that by doing that, I think we have huge opportunities to get some excitement, some rock and roll, and some strength and focus into this important area in the UK, because we have the potential in the UK to be, I mean, we already are world class in many areas, and you don't need me to tell you that, because your institution here is a world class institution. But I think from a business point of view, we have some huge opportunities that we could get to. And so to reimagine manufacturing. So let's take three terms. Those three terms are advanced, resilient, and net zero. And so we picked these three terms as three essential elements of how we think manufacturing might be reimagined. And so if you focus on these areas and focus on how we as the UK can focus on some advanced areas where we would have a leadership position, and there are many, many of those. Now again, you don't need me to tell you that because you know this already, but I don't think this is as widely known as it should be. And we have an opportunity to make that better known by taking a strong position and putting some zip and rock and roll, as I mentioned, into this, and that's one of the intentions of our Manufacturing Vision 2050. Resilience is a word that has come into the vocabulary more and more over the last couple of years, and it's relevant to every single thing. I was today in an agri-tech facility just in the north of Cambridge, and this is an important area for us because we really believe in the need for innovation support for the agri and food sector to be able to better make us resilient and also act as a catalyst to global export opportunities. Do you know there are some fantastic opportunities for UK businesses to export on agri-tech in terms of licensing, know-how? We have a fantastic brand in the UK. This is just, but there are many others, and there are many manufacturing techniques that are relevant in that sector. So by reimagining manufacturing and by embracing that we will focus on some of these advanced areas, we will focus on areas where we can help resilience in our society and our economy, and by imagining how we would greenshore manufacturing into the UK and from the UK that embraces net zero, and to have all of these three ingredients which don't end up in a zero sum, but end up each enhancing the other. Now, I think this is all possible, and I think many of the businesses that we have, I think already do this. I think many of the concepts we have and many of the things, and I'm sure if I stayed and saw more demos than I was able to in the brief time that I was here, I'm sure I could learn more that's already been done. But what we now need to see is this become much more widespread thinking in our economy, society, because we have a huge opportunity in the UK. And we would love to be able to partner with you in terms of how we go down this work and go and do this work, because our team, brilliant people, excellent people, have read your innovation thing that you showed at the very beginning, and we are very excited about some of the principles and policies that you're talking about, and we think that there is a great potential for a partnership between us as we go and develop this, and we definitely would like to involve you in our process as we go down the road. And when we consider these three elements of advanced, net zero and resilient, we get into sub-elements, as I just mentioned there, supply chains, having integrity of supply chains, being able to use specialist and advanced materials. We have in the UK at the end of last year, I think it was, no, sorry, I'm getting my years mixed up. It was the year before, there was this report actually chaired by the current Science and Innovation Minister, George Freeman, about potential impact of regulation in terms of innovation and business development. And we think that there's a lot in that. And so we think that there's a lot in terms of how we would embrace regulations and regulation development and evolution in terms of helping with business opportunities, and also in terms of the skills agenda that I mentioned earlier. So we see a circular connection between these elements, and we see ultimately that we would like to explain ourselves in terms of core areas of focus, and we give some examples here in terms of next generation materials, smart design, resilient supply chains, as I mentioned, get into high value, good margin production, and longer in use and reuse, but then also having enablers. So the enabling areas in terms of energy, regulations, relation skills and value models, these are things that we think create a very good connection between one and the other. And so we would like to work with you as we go forward on the development of this manufacturing vision, and we would like to develop something which we can then put as an inspiring framework to stimulate some interest in this, because we think that with the interest in innovation, we think with the government's innovation strategy launched last July, and the Secretary of State's personal interest in how this is put into business and how we are living this, we think that reimagining manufacturing, it's a good time to be doing this, and we think that the combination of manufacturing and innovation, I think, is a really good combination for the current time. I think going forward together would definitely be a good idea to do it, and I think now is the right time for us to give this a very good go. We think the elemental platform that's in the UK is very strong, and we just need to sometimes do a bit of a better job to pull it together. So we often have the ingredients, but the packaging is what needs to be done. And I see that now that I've done a year in this job in the public sector and working much more across government than obviously I've ever done in my career, I can see huge opportunities to pull things together, to package things better, and also huge opportunities to sell the UK and sell the capability that we have, and also to focus on a combination of capability and geography, because I think if you can do that, you can also productize the place agenda. So as a guy who's been in business a long time, I've been quite used to getting pitches from many regions or cities or countries that come to you to say, you know, we'd like to pitch this. And I think we have a huge opportunity to actually productize place and capability in the UK, because we have many clusters of brilliant talent and capability that we could use and go forward. And I think in manufacturing this could be a very, very good thing to do. You know that we have a strong catapult network, and I dare say you're already working with a number of our catapults. And I think, again, to reimagine manufacturing now would be a very, very good thing. And I already mentioned about the green shoring destination. I think this is a huge opportunity for investment into the UK if we can profile ourselves as a kind of global green shoring know-how area. And I think this will become a more and more important thing, almost like you can imagine a brand that says made in the UK, which is then an important element in the net zero, where you want international governments and countries, etc., to be able to prove that something is consistent with that. And I think the UK can offer a lot in that regard. So definitely want to collaborate, and definitely welcome the chance to be able to work together. And I think this is a very exciting time. And yes, it is difficult, because there are always challenges and there are always reasons why things can't be done. But I think it needs the best talent. And to get the best talent, you need to, again, put some rock and roll into the mission. So to put the rock and roll into the mission makes the mission attractive. So I think we should also up our collective game in terms of the way we describe what we are trying to do. If we want to reimagine manufacturing, I think we shouldn't explain it from the ground up. We should explain it from the sky downwards, and explain the sky first, and the heavens and all that kind of stuff first, and not start from the excitement of one or two particular models, however exciting those things might be to some people. And to start with the inspiration, because we have done that in the UK on many other instances and many other situations, and I think we can do that. And I think there are actually quite a few business sectors, market sectors, where I think that combination of reimagination and rock and roll could, I think, up this game. I think this is definitely one of those areas. As you can see, that the the slide writer highlighted the word "make" there, which I must admit I didn't spot before, but I just spotted it now, so I wanted to give due consideration to the highlight of the word "make." I think that we have huge opportunities in this area. I feel very passionate about manufacturing and the reimagination of a modern manufacturing paradigm here in the UK, where I think our starting point is already very, very good. So I'm open to any questions you want to ask. I'll do my best to answer anything, and look forward to any collaborations that we can get together. Thank you very much for your attention.
Well, Indro, by your own priority, that was a highly inspiring address. I think everybody here will be glowing with delight to hear that message and that mission. As I said at the beginning, I'm going to cheat and ask my questions first, so you'll just have to wait. And after that, we will do some open questions, and it's the usual routine. You put your hand up, and if I like the look of you, I'll let you have a go. I'm also, I think, I'm told that I'm getting some messages on here. So good evening to the quite large number of you who may be online at the moment. And if you send in your messages, I will get them. And again, if I like the look of the question, I won't be able to see you, but if I like the look of the question, I might decide to pose it to Indro. So in many ways, I think, Indro, you've anticipated the kind of things that we would be interested in, which is the role of manufacturing, its importance within the whole economy, and the way that we make industrial policy. And as you know, and I think everybody is aware, industrial policy is one of these things that goes in and out of fashion, depending on who's in power and what their particular political and economic frameworks are. But it does seem that there is these days globally a recognition that industry, governments have a responsibility to be involved in shaping, if not the environment in which industry operates, then certainly some of the underpinning technologies that go on. And I wondered whether you have a view and whether you think it's Innovate UK business to be feeding in the necessary content and perhaps developing the framework, the processes that government should be using if it wants to have robust and effective industrial policies. And if you guys aren't doing it, who is?
We definitely must and do feed in feedback from what business needs, where it's going, what we see, what we anticipate. That's for sure being done. What works, what doesn't work, these are all things that's our responsibility to absolutely feed in. I think there's a huge interest in it. What we are not there for is to lobby. So we wouldn't be a lobbyist of government, but we would be an inputter of business needs, business trends and business requirements, especially as they relate to innovation. And so we definitely do that and recognise that as our raison d'être. We have people, many of our people are ex-business, and they've worked in industry, they've worked in broader business, and so they recognise and understand the needs and speak the language. And certainly the team that helped me with the slides that you saw and who are working on the manufacturing strategy, really would like to connect the team with your team here. Brilliant people, excellent people, and they are very much talking that language. And so we definitely do embrace that, Mike, and we definitely do think that's our role and that's our responsibility to feed that back.
Thank you. And do you observe in government that they do have processes for systematically developing policy? In some areas of government, people know how to do it, and it's sort of written down, like the spending review and so on. But my limited observation is that when it comes to industrial strategy, it tends to be a sort of open outcry, and there's no systematic way of doing it, or perhaps I just haven't spotted it.
Well, you know, I can say what I've seen in my year in this job, which is a very strong intent for economic change and big economic impact. So I've definitely seen that. There's no doubt about that. I've seen ministers put in, I don't know, hundreds, thousands of miles of being on the road to meet businesses, to interface with businesses, and to listen to people, tell them things. I've seen that for myself. I've seen a very strong intent to make a difference. So I'm not, you know, so I don't judge anything else. I can only tell you what I've seen, and what I've seen is a very strong intent and commitment. Innovate UK has been given the trust by government to have more money, more support. We have a rising settlement, and when you combine our core funding plus all the managed programs and other things that we do, it's a very substantial amount of money over the period of the spending review. And that's as a result of people really wanting to put their faith and trust in this organisation, but also with an expectation to deliver. And so I have spotted a huge amount of enthusiasm for real change and economic improvement in the time that I've been doing this job. And I feel actually quite motivated by it.
That's very encouraging. One last sort of Babbage question, then I will let somebody else have a go. One of the things that we observe is that traditionally industrial policy is formulated with models from economics, whereas clearly industrial policy involves engineering, technology, operations, as well as economics.
Yeah.
One of the things that I guess we aspire to is trying to provide better integrated foundations for doing industrial policy, which take into account these different disciplines. Any views on how we might improve or is it interdisciplinarity for policymakers?
Interdisciplinarity is a really big thing, and by the way, it's also a big thing between the science, research, and innovation area as well. So having fluidity, interdisciplinarity, multifunctional teams. These are really, really important elements. We ourselves have economists in Innovate UK. We have economists and economic specialists who help us with how we do our assessment, how we do our make up the logic models for what we want to achieve, and these are highly important elements to link together, because you've got to link together the desired model that you're going for and the reality of what you want to do. There is one other ingredient I just want to keep to add that word, and that is soul. Because you can forget about the soul element to this as well. So the economic model is important, what can happen from the engineering is important, but there's a lot of soul that comes into desire, willpower, in terms of real translation into business, and that's often a very important element. So I think all those elements are important, and so multidisciplinarity, I completely agree, is a very vital area.
But I like your word soul because it implies that manufacturing, people do get passionate about making things and creating companies and creating products, and it's more than just numbers.
It's more than just numbers, and it's absolutely more than just numbers. This to do what you need to do, you need soul, you need passion, you need determination. As I said, when you look back at something and it's a great success, well, you know, that's a nice place to be, but kind of anyone can be happy at that point. What's hard is when you're going on that journey to get there and you're having to overcome challenges, you're having to raise money as well, you're having to overcome technical challenges, customer challenges, etc. And you need a huge amount of passion, energy and determination. And I think that our manufacturing tradition in the UK is heavily dependent on that, heavily reinforcing the soulful nature of the engineers, of the manufacturers, of the designers, of the entrepreneurs, of the leaders, of the supporters who've been involved in that journey. And I think soul is a really important element in this.
Excellent. Well, I should let somebody else have a go, I suppose. Can we go to Carlos first? Carlos is who's the author of the innovation report, and didn't know I was going to call on him.
One of the authors. Well, thank you so much for your talk. I'm Carlos, and I work here at the Institute. You talk about innovation objectives, and also talk about the logic model that you have inside Innovate UK. So, for many people, innovation objectives, or the logic model, stops on the outputs, with the outputs of innovation, like patents, papers, even startups. But when we were actually working on the report, one of the things we found, perhaps less information, is the outcome of the right-hand side of the logic model. How are the industries doing, actually? And of course, we are in the context of manufacturing GDP declining, many things invented here, produced elsewhere. So how important is, or should be, the competitiveness of UK-based manufacturing industries in the logic model of Innovate UK, but also based on others?
Absolutely. Carlos, I don't. Hopefully, I hope I'm not going to upset anybody. But patents and papers cannot possibly be the most leading indicator of the work that we do. I'm sorry, it just can't be. The work that we do has got to be to do with fundamental impact on economy and society, which is to do with businesses that can, and industries and sectors that can be prosperous, enduring, employ people, be exciting to work in, and be growing and be flagship things for the UK. And so those are the things that are in our logic model, not specifically just papers. By the way, I'm not saying that papers and patents are not important, but it can't be the only thing that you look at, because you can have a situation where you've got 100 patents and no business. So we really would like to be people who work hard to see results that are there, outcomes that are there for people, the economy, skills in the UK, and enduring businesses that can grow and flourish. So we would like to do that.
Lovely. Gentleman here, but would you wait for the microphone, please? And if you'd be kind enough to say who you are, gentleman here.
My name's Henry Asklar. I'm a student here at the University of Cambridge. And just building on that question and your response, you made a lot of comments about helping companies through the valley of death, providing them investments and things of that nature. Do you have a target, another matrix, perhaps, like if you were in a private capital investment, you would say, okay, I made 10 investments 5 were successful, and I've returned, and you have another goal, you mentioned another goal, of returning that money back to the taxpayers of the UK. So is there a matrix where you can kind of say at the end of the day, I've returned this much money back, I've had this much success, and I've had 5 companies, 10 companies, 100 companies get past the value of death?
There is, and we do that through various economic measurements like gross value add, like numbers of employments, like incremental change that we've made, and so forth. So all of those things are tracked. And incidentally, I happen to think that there are actually 2 valleys of death. One valley of death is the valley of death that everyone talks about, which is the one between when you have an idea, you get something started, and do you or don't you get traction to become successful and then go on that next stage. The valley of death that isn't spoken about in the same way, which is, I think, for me quite concerning, is the valley of death that comes later, where you've got your business to a certain size and you now need to scale. And that scale up is actually quite a non-trivial challenge in terms of the kind of capital that you need to raise, the attitudes of the capital providers, how easy it is to come by, do they like certain sectors or not like certain sectors, etc., etc., etc. As you may know, in the manufacturing area, there have been examples where various attempts have been made to use different words to call things that weren't manufacturing. And you know, at a certain period a few years ago, if you rocked up to a VC and told them you were running a manufacturing business, they'd be out of the door straight away. They'd actually be out of the door faster than you would be because they want to stay as far away from you as possible. So people tried all kinds of words. I won't say what any of those words are because I'm sure I'll offend somebody if I do. And so I think it's really important to really see that second valley of death, I don't care what we call it, but anyway, you know what I mean, this scale-up thing, because that's a real challenge in the UK. I think the global economy changes at the moment is likely to make the route to some of these US SPACs be a less favourable route than maybe it has been, because we had those, as you know, the last couple of years. I mean, there were even institutions just specialising in kind of machine-type SPACs where you can just go out and do that. And that's your source to capital. So I think that's going to become more difficult for various things, and so I think the importance is really that we look at this for the UK. We're running an event at the Stock Exchange next week and inviting a number of scale-up businesses there because we want to really see the needs of those things. So I just wanted to add that second part to the equation as well. But I think fundamental impact through gross value add, through skills, added value, economic impacts, employment impacts, these are the things that ultimately we want to achieve.
Excellent. That again will be music to the ears of people here who have been arguing for scale up for a long time. Gentleman here, and then a gentleman at the back, and then a lady over there. This chap here. Sebastian.
I thought maybe there was someone behind me, but I'm Sebastian Pattinson, an assistant professor here at IFM. I'm just curious, so it seems as though the UK innovation landscape is changing quite a lot with the founding of ARIA and the promise of sort of new ways of allocating funding, the emergence of UKRI, and I suppose potentially also question marks over the UK's involvement in Horizon Europe.
Yeah.
So do you see Innovate UK's either remit or the way that Innovate UK operates changing in response to those trends?
Yes, I think to be honest with you, it's changing anyway, because when I started with a mandate to become an organisation that I think the Secretary of State's announcement was something that is substantially more than only focusing on the deployment of grants, and so we do much more than that. But beyond that, I do agree with you. If we don't associate with Horizon, and of course, I don't know whether we will or we won't, but if we don't associate with Horizon, that will have quite significant implications for how we would then want to offer non-Horizon type solutions, whatever those might be. And again, this is not for tonight's conversation, if you don't mind. So that would have quite significant impacts. And I think the whole ecosystem is now looking more keenly to what the innovation journey is about. I think commercialization is becoming more important. Scale-ups are becoming more important, and I think that as all of this happens, this is a very important time for Innovate UK to be a very strong player in that area. So I do believe we are going to be changing. I think there's a much greater focus on economic return through the evolution of commercialisation, and I think we're starting to really embrace that in the UK very, very strongly. I'm optimistic, by the way, in that regard. I think it's a very good time to be doing this work.
Gentleman at the back with a haircut like mine.
Time for the bold people to take the microphone. It's very heartwarming to hear there's a person who talks sense when it comes to doing things for a social enterprise rather than a business. You mentioned a 15-year timeline. And let me echo Uncle Mike's words when he said, policy, strategy, we'd be shy with these words here. A 15-year continuity and consistency. You see a lot of enthusiasm, but how? And you said you're not going to lobby. You're not going to lobby people who have a lot of enthusiasm, but perhaps don't understand enough about this sector. I think perhaps you need to explain a few things to them, and that a 15-year timeline requires cross-party consistency. What's your game plan on that? Because you're going to have to deliver, right?
The game plan on that is to start talking about it, to explain the logic and reason why something, by the way, not everything will have a 15-year horizon, but when it does have a 15-year horizon or a 10-year horizon or a 5-year horizon or a horizon beyond even the current political term, then just let's explain what has happened as a result of our spending public money on talented people to have gone out and understood the requirements of businesses, industries and technologies, and feed that back, and this is our thought. And so at the end of the day, we're a public service, and we are not paid by the public to lobby. We're paid by the public to deliver for UK business. And as we deliver, we share our strategies, and then we work across the system. It's very important to work within the system. I've put, in my year that I've been here, a huge amount of effort into networking, making connections across government. I'm very heartened at the people that I'm meeting, be they ministers, people in government, people, senior officials, advisors. There's a lot of very, very, very capable people. So actually, I'm quite optimistic, but I don't want to say that I can't understand your question. I definitely can understand your question. This is not easy. I think one of my slides even said difficult but doable. So I think we need to be honest about it. So I get your question completely, and we need to work hard. That's our motto.
Lady just here on the second row, one in. Any more hands?
Hi there.
Okay.
First of all, thank you for taking the time to come and do this lecture. So I'm from an SME working in advanced materials, had a lot of support, incredible support from Innovate UK. And we like to think we're developing a world-leading tech, and with the UK leading the world in this sector. And it has been enabled entirely by Innovate UK. So I guess my question is, so within the UK, with R&D funding, we tend to stop at TRL 6. And if you look at sort of other countries, like even the US, through the SBRI program, their equivalent SBRI program, etc., they look at mechanisms beyond TRL 6. And that's the bit where sort of the commercialization phase comes in. So for us as a business, having just spoken to a bunch clean tech investors today, a pitch to them, one of their core concerns is how long will it take? And a 7-year time frame is, for our business, for our technology, just too short to return their investment. And from our customer side, the cost of commercialization is the critical bit. So we do need the private capital, but we need true patient capital. So does Innovate UK have mechanisms? You alluded to sort of the British Business Bank.
Yeah.
So are you developing mechanisms that will potentially help with that?
We're developing partnerships that we intend to be helpful in that regard. I completely agree with you on the need for patient capital. Remember that we are not there to provide capital beyond a certain point, but what we can do, as I mentioned in my thing earlier, is when we talk about involve, We want to convene partners to help that exact journey. I recognise your description of your journey completely. And by the way, we didn't enable your success. You did your success. We're just there in the background to support you. So we can do that by having partners that we work with. I think that we have a little way to go, and it's a work stream that I acknowledge that we've got to put more effort into, and it has my attention, to make a more joined up story as you go through the different, both TRLs, but also the capital raise needs that you have. Businesses that are here, or represented here, or working with here, understand that the capital requirements are not the same as for an app business or for a services business. So if you want to go from this level to that level, for an app business, you might need, I don't know, 3 more people, and you can do that. By the way, there's nothing wrong with that. These are great businesses, and we need those businesses. For a manufacturing-based business, you might need to move to a different building. You might need to have a different piece of equipment. You change the paradigm completely. And so you'll go in for a higher capital need where your business hasn't gone through that, because you've still got the same customer base and so forth. And by the way, then you've got little details that people often forget. I've just come from, as I mentioned earlier, one of the agri-tech areas. And in agri-tech, you can only show your results during seasonal things. So imagine raising your money where the results can only happen when you're seasonal. There is that equivalent in many business areas as well, where you've got particularities. And investors sometimes say they don't like these things. I think that as a community, what we are trying to do as well is to help investors to understand this better so that they can take a long-term view. And the last thing I'll mention is that we're working on a very practical thing, which I'm hopeful can be helpful to you and all of the other businesses that we've supported by either grants, loans, or non-cash through advisory and help on skills and export and so forth. And that's this. We are working on a program to create a platform to link together all the businesses that we've supported with a platform of third-party investors. And we can't make the market, that's not our role, but we can allow a market to be made if we just make that platform. Now, every time we support a business, we've effectively done some kind of triage, we've done some assessment, we've done a bit of diligence and so forth. And so we've spent public money understanding that business, and that should be a huge benefit to a third-party investor to see that that's happened. What we now need to do is to facilitate that connection. Now, all of this is public information. You can mine it yourself, but it's not presented in a user-friendly format. So what we are working on is this program, which you'll see in the late summer, early autumn at the latest. And this program will link together all businesses that we've supported, and there'll be a little description of the business, and they will then be searchable and findable, assuming they want to be, of course, under criteria. So an investor who wants to invest in advanced materials A, B, and C, they will put that in. I want to make an investment round of so-and-so. You slide the scale there, and here are some businesses that could be relevant. At that stage, we keep out of it, because that's not our job, but those two parties can then talk to each other and so forth. There's excitement in the investment community for this, because they think that's going to be potentially transformational. And so some SMEs we've trialled this with are also very excited. And we then intend to also bring corporate venture organisations onto that platform as well. And so then we hope to be able to make a very effective ecosystem which utilises the fact that we've spent public money to effectively give a business, a little bit of a kind of endorsement in a sense, because we've looked at that and we can say we've checked this business out, we've got this, and this is a very important thing. So I'm very excited about this, and I think this is potentially transformational.
Fantastic. I know there are other people who want to come in, but I'm afraid the clock's beating us. Indro's not rushing away, so when we move outside, you might try and catch him. Can I thank you, Indro? It's been absolutely inspiring. For manufacturing folks here, I like to say, to my distinguished scientific colleagues, well, science is lying around you there, but if you don't discover it, somebody else will. But engineers and manufacturers create things that have never existed before, and I think you've inspired us to believe that that's the game that's on, and I wouldn't dare to speak for Professor Minshall, but I suspect he would want to bite your hand off in collaborating in the challenge you've set us. So thank you very much indeed, a fabulous occasion.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed.
I believe there may be some refreshments outside.